Hi, it's Matthew Holt, another TCB Spotlight. I'm here with Ariel Katz. Ariel is the CEO and founder of H1, which is a company I've not tracked down, but has been out in the market, scooping up a couple of companies who, if you're very careful readers and viewers of TCB, you know that H1 acquired Ribbon Health this year and just acquired Veda Health, both in their interviews about in the world of in the world of physician data. I guess what I'm going to call it. Ariel, welcome. You let's not talk about those acquisitions quite yet, but let's get to the basics of where did H1 start. You're going to show us a bit about that. But first off, you guys been around from about 2000. You were you're a YC company in 2000. Been around a little bit longer than that. But what is the underlying problem that you're solving, and what is the data you brought together to do that?
Yeah. So we started, thanks for having me, by the way. We started in 2018, and then we went to YC in winter of 2020, COVID days. We were the COVID batch, where COVID hit right in
Okay.
the middle. When we started the business in 2018, we set out for our mission to be connect the world to the right doctor. And to do that, we decided to profile every doctor, every healthcare professional in the world, and tell everybody everything you want to know about them. So for a given doctor, we have like where do they work, what patients they see, what are they good at, which pharma companies they work with, everything. What did they tweet 2 seconds ago? What is their scientific literature? Everything you can imagine about these doctors. We have more than mostly anyone else has in the world. And it's been working pretty well. Right now, we have about 11 million healthcare professionals in our platform. Basically, every doctor, besides for ones in Russia, Iran, um, China, and some countries in Latam in the Middle East. So everyone you can imagine we have inside of H1 today.
All right. So we'll get into the purpose, and you're going to show us the purpose of what it's used for in a minute. But what's the source of all that data? Because I mean, I've been over the years talked to people like Judy Yu, who was at Congress and now an Andreessen, and dealing with physician data when it changes so much and physicians move and there's no really good source of truth. How are you bringing all that data together, and then how are you keeping it current?
That's the business. The real way to get it is, I mean, when we started, we had no money. It was our startup. And so the best way is you go and scrape every hospital website in the world.
Right.
Once you do that, governments post some data depending on the government. The US is not that bad at it. The UK is not that bad either, but some countries are a tiny bit, make it a tiny bit more difficult. So when you go to the government sources, once you do that, those public sources, you then get into the bucket of, well, there's information that people have about doctors, but it's not public. Your insurance company has great information about doctors, what patients they're seeing, are they good at treating patients? So you go and partner with those organizations. Hospitals have information about doctors. You go to work with hospitals to get that information about them. Eventually, you're going to want these doctors and hospitals to come in and add information themselves. And so we do all three of those areas. We get public information, we partner, we purchase, and then doctors and hospitals come into H1 and update their own information as well.
Okay. And on the last part, why would I do that as a doctor? Why would I care about helping H1?
You care about helping yourself, and
Okay.
we help you do that. And so if you claim your profile in H1, you get two benefits today, maybe even three. We're growing the third. The first one is we will help connect you to a clinical trial. So if you're interested in running a clinical trial, come in and claim your profile on H1. That's one. And that's important. It's a revenue driver. And people care about doing clinical research if they have patients that don't have other care pathways. Number two is we have a part of H1 where we connect doctors to humanitarian missions. And so if you want to go help in certain countries in Africa and Russia, we helped in Gaza, we helped in Israel, yeah, you come in and claim your profile. The third way is there are tens of millions of patients using H1's information every single day to know which doctor to go see. If you want your information to be correct, you want to increase your patient flow, update your H1 information. That's what you're doing.
So that third one is interesting. We'll dive into how it gets used by your clients in a minute. But that third one, I assume the patients don't know they're using H1, or maybe they do. But tell me how that works. I'm a random
Yeah.
patient. I'm using H1's data. How? Why?
I almost guarantee that you've used us, that you know you used us. So we today power, and it goes to the acquisitions we've been making.
Yes.
We today power various digital health applications that all of people use every single day in America. And today we power nine out of the top 10 health plans, physician information, and what they call a provider directory, which is that find a doctor page on their website. And so we are powering tens of millions of Americans every single day, every single year to help them find the right doctor. And that's our information. It's flowing into those tools, into those pages.
So I know I said we wouldn't talk about the acquisitions, but both Ribbon Health was in that business, and also Veda Health was in that business. Were you doing this before them? And those are ads to what you're doing already, or are those that kind of
So
a new market for you?
in 2022, I said, wow, we have all this information about physicians. Let's go and sell to health plans and digital health companies. They need it. When we started to go into that market, we realized, wow, Ribbon's pretty good with digital health, and they were growing with health plans. And Veda, they were all over the place with health plans. Tough competition. Let's get out of this. But we learned a lot about that market. And then as we grew and grew on the life sciences side, I continued to pitch those founders, Nate at Ribbon and Megan at Beta, like, we should do this together. What are we doing here being so separate? Eventually, persistence helps. And so eventually we all came together here.
Arms were twisted with silver was crossed across palms and stuff. I'm sure. All right, fantastic. So why don't you open up and show me what the experience is like for a customer? I assume that the well, you tell me about which customers you're going to be, but I assume that the typical customer is at a pharma company. So
It's less exciting to see the demo for a digital health and health plan because it's an API, and I don't know if you want me to walk you through the documentation. And so I'll start with
but just this. So this is the demo of the traditional H1 product, as it were, before you get those acquisitions. Okay, what are we looking at here?
you're looking at a medical science liaison manager. This is me as an admin here,
Yep.
and instead of using LinkedIn, you could come into H1 and get the latest information about every healthcare professional that you follow, every doctor you follow. This guy's presenting in 3 days at this conference. You could see upcoming medical conferences. I'll scroll down. See this guy tweeted 2 seconds ago. This person's speaking in July. To get really the latest
So
information about.
you're out scraping every conference website as well to figure out what these doctors are doing and
I
who's.
didn't even show you this map, but check this out. It gets even better. I could tell you the current live active congresses. I'll tell you everything that's going on at these congresses right now in real time. Everything about it. And I could also use our AI summarization to say, what happened yesterday? And it's going to go summarize it for you. You know the people speaking there, you know the social, you know the sessions, the posters, everything you can imagine. This one's literally taking place in Lisbon, Portugal. In 2 seconds here, it's going to summarize what happened yesterday there in Portugal. You don't need to go there anymore in the future.
Don't tell the conference organizer that. You'll.
I won't tell them how to organize that, but it's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, very good.
It's going to link out to the sources, everything you can imagine. But the way it's normally used is you come in and search breast cancer. It's going to pull up, go to People tab. It's going to pull up everything. Oops, let me clear my filters. It's going to pull up every healthcare professional in the world that does work in breast cancer. I'll load here in a second. Someone in California, Spain, Texas, Germany, a lot of Germans that are experts in breast cancer here. And everything, but you could filter, you could search, there's thousands, millions of people here. And about a healthcare professional, you could see everything about them, where they work, their scientific research, their clinical trials, the medical congresses, their tweets, the patients they see. You can click here, it's really cool. You can see all their patients they see. This person sees 727 unique patients, breast cancer, their network of influence, who they publish with, who they speak with, who they work on a clinical trial with, everything you can imagine, where they work. Really, really powerful. So this
So
is
let's go on.
Oh, you go ahead. This is the experience for a medical affairs professional. If you're trying to find thought leading healthcare professionals, thought leading doctors in America.
So the typical initial use case for this type of client, the medical affairs professional, is I need to figure out which doctors I should be getting my teams, in front of because I want to influence them about my medication or my drug or whatever my policy is.
Yeah, it's when a life science company is launching a drug, they want to educate doctors prior to launch about this clinical benefits of that drug compared to what's in the market. Not selling it, it's not approved, but you want to start to educate people about it. And so that is what it's used for.
And before you started doing this, how was this done?
Spreadsheets.
I will tell you a funny story. In 2004, three, two, long time ago, 20 years ago, I got somehow involved in a project doing analysis of trying to connect which doctors, nephrologists were attached to which kidney dialysis centers or nephrology or which hospitals in order to try to help. I think it must have been Amgen. I can't remember who it was, but figure out who was the people to talk to about the new drug they were bringing out, and also I think how to sell them more of the one they already had. And or my recollection was you were like literally holding two spreadsheets up to the light and trying to match them together. The data was dreadful.
We could answer that for you in like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a whole
I,
different ball game these days. Uh,
I suspect you had you been around in 2004, we wouldn't have had a consulting project with it. And that's probably, that's probably a good thing. Fantastic. So tell me, so that's really fascinating. So that's one major
that's
use case.
one. I'll show
And
you
then tell me
this
about
one
clinical
here.
trials.
Yeah, clinical trials. So if I come in, I'll search breast cancer again. Um, if I search breast cancer, same search. This product's used to find out, I'll sort here by the most promising investigator. Who are the top doctors that have experience doing work in breast cancer? And tell me everything about them. Our friend Hope Brugo, who we looked at before, here you can see something different. Search breast cancer. You could see she sees 161 patients in breast cancer. You could see the race and ethnicity of that patient population. It's de-identified, but you could see the types of patient profile she's seeing. 78 clinical trials. So now if you want to work with Hope Rugo, there's no better place to go. You know she's done a clinical trial at this location as well as over here. You can see her race, ethnicity, the language she speaks, her patient population, her clinical trial experience, the sponsors that she works with, the patients she sees, the trials she works on, everything you can imagine. There's nothing better. And so that's what we do. Just two quick examples.
So for this case, do you want to go back to Hope for a sec
Back to you, back to you.
go back to Hope for 1 second. So I said there are two sort of questions we're using. Presumably, I need to find a whole bunch of centers for my drug if I'm doing a clinical trial. So
Yeah.
do it one by one, or can this thing can you run a sort of search in the background to give me the list of the top five I should go to?
Actually, the way that people actually start to use it is they would come to our trial page first.
Yeah,
I type in breast cancer. They start with answering the question of what is the average enrollment rate?
right,
How many patients do I need to recruit? Let me look at all the previous studies, and then I'm going to look at what are the sites, the hospitals that are doing breast cancer uh, clinical trials and research. Who has the patients in breast cancer? Then after they pick the site, then they eventually get to the doctor. So like, okay, great, Texas Oncology. Now I'm at Texas Oncology. I'm going to look at all the affiliated sites with Texas Oncology. So I'm going to look at like what else is there. I then want to look at who are the people that work at Texas Oncology in breast cancer, the patient profile of those individuals. You might add some sorts and filters, biomarkers, diversity about the institution. And so you really start with like enrollment rate,
right.
site, investigator, and then eventually get to the investigator. That's the way it works.
And then at that point, am I now and this would be somebody at a CRO or somebody at a pharma company responsible for clinical trials,
So
both
CROs use this as well as pharma companies.
figuring that out, and that clinical research organization will the people who run trials actually run the trials for the drug companies. Um, so now I've identified the centers and then the doctors and the rest of it. Is this also a communication platform, or does that have to do I go out somewhere else to actually
You generally go to Hope's profile, you use her email that we provide for you, but that's where we want to get to. I
yeah,
mean, we have doctors using it, and we have pharma companies and sites using, and CROs. Like everyone's using it. We want to facilitate that communication as well. There's some compliance elements to it as you get into medical and commercial use cases, but for clinical, 100%, that's where we want to get to.
fantastic, fascinating. So great. So that's really interesting to see how you're doing this. Let's turn it off now and tell me a little bit about the company. You have you I think raised a couple of 100 million. So since those days when we had no money and Y Combinator back in the boom time. And as obviously now I've just, as you mentioned, just made these two acquisitions. Had you made some acquisitions before? Or like it's the first time hearing of it?
We did a couple of small ones. These were
Yeah.
pretty meaty though. Ribbon and Veda were fairly large
Yeah,
scale.
both of them, I believe, had raised more than 50 million each. So it was
Ribbon
presumably,
raised yeah, about 75 and Veda
yep.
raised about 80. Yeah.
Okay, so rather more than that. And you raised a couple 100 million. So presumably, I wanted to talk to you about sort of two things. One is you mentioned a little bit earlier is that okay, so I'm doing this, I'm expanding my product set for H1. I have to start thinking about who are the people I'm bumping into in the market. And there's a couple. You have to talk them into it. What else is out there in this world? There are a couple of companies that you'd think. I would think IQVIA and some others would be, and potentially Doximity would be sort of thinking about this world. Is there somebody doing kind of your narrow niche in these two areas?
The way to there's competitors in each of the segments we work with. The thing that we're doing unique is nobody's going and saying, across all aspects to healthcare, I need to connect with a doctor. from a hospital, an insurance company, a life science company, a doctor themselves, all patient. People do it for pharma companies. People do it for insurance companies. Nobody's doing it cross. And so that's the unique spin that we have here, where we know, hey, the same information that Pfizer is using to find a doctor to run a clinical trials, actually the same information that I want as a patient. Are they good? Do they see patients that look like me? Are they available? Where do they work? And so that's our thesis that like it's the same information. And we know that doctors want to participate and hospitals and research sites want to participate. So that's the unique spin that we're doing compared to everyone else.
Interesting. And then that leads to the obvious question of you know, how easy or slash how hard and how much effort is there involved in integrating all those different data sets, because Ribbon had one and Veda had one and you had one and the other companies acquired have them as well. There is a ton of new data out there. And as we mentioned before, this data changes very, very rapidly. I mean, you're looking at once you've got them in the database, you can start picking up when they go to conferences and stuff. But I mean, they move house and they go from one plan to another and, all that stuff happens. So, how easy is it for you to get it down to one database? What's that process been like so far? And then the follow-up question to that one is, can you genuinely use that one platform and database for all those different products that you're talking about?
To answer the latter question, yes, for 95% of it. Like
Okay.
it's incredible. Obviously, there are nuances. So when we were looking at Hope Rugo on the clinical trial platform, we showed where she worked on a clinical trial. It's not really relevant to someone in medical affairs. They just want to know where she works. And
Right.
so there's some texture that 5% changes. A patient wants to know which phone number do I call to book an appointment for a patient? Someone at pharma wants to know which phone number do I call to get to the doctor. They don't care if it's for appointment for patients. So there's nuances to it, but generally 95% is the exact same thing across all segments, which is the unique view that we have in the world. How hard was it to pull together? Well, it's taken like 8 years, and we're still not done. uh,
If you acquire somebody who's gone a far way down the path, like a Ribbon or a Veda, I mean, when you say it's not, are you currently operating them as sort of three separate databases, but they are all
completely integrated. We all
okay?
bring up special things. So what Ribbon had the best of? Ribbon had the best physician address data. What building? Okay, you go to 102 Main Street. They're on the fourth floor, suite 104.
Yeah,
That is very difficult data to get. Ribbon was the best at that. Veda, really good at network data. What health insurances does this doctor accept? An amazing accuracy score, amazing AI and data science team for scoring how well the phone number is accurate. The doctor actually works here. Best data science team around doctors' data out there. Completely integrated. The thesis is integrated in deeply. There's a lot of overlap between the data that we have. Cut out the overlap and bring the unique special sauce in.
that's fabulous. For both, and obviously for both of them, you've got a sort of different set of clients as well. Um, how have the clients taken to the integration? Do they just not care because it's are you keeping those same brands going? Are they now an H1 brand? How are they thinking about it?
Hopefully, if our marketing team did its job, it's all an H1 brand. So that's
Okay.
cool. um, our thesis was pretty simple. It is simple. Only do an acquisition if the company that's being acquired's customer base benefits more on day one. It doesn't matter how they benefit H1. It matters if you're benefiting their customers.
Sure.
And so with Ribbon, we said we're going to give you guys a whole bunch of free stuff really quickly. Same thing with Veda, a whole bunch of free stuff. Nothing's going to change with your tech, your data. It's great. It's keeping the same, but we're going to give you a whole bunch of free stuff included in your subscription. And that's going great. It's been incredibly successful, honestly, for Ribbon, and Veda's brand new, but we feel really good about it as well.
Fantastic. So, let's talk a little about the world of the digital health market. We're taping this on a Monday. We just had our second IPO of the year, and this one was interesting. Was Armada Health was because it's been around a long time, but it's still making a profit. There's been an issue. You raised money at the time when a bunch of digital health companies went public, and some of them may not have been ready. Put it this way, the market perhaps wasn't ready for them as they thought it was. We can discuss what that's like. When you're having the conversations, and I don't know where you were with, original valuations back when you raised your money compared to the valuations that you struck at, and presumably these are all stock deals, I assume, within. So you had some, I don't know how you've made these other things. Where do you think the sort of market from an acquirer's perspective is at the moment? I mean, were you finding these conversations to be relatively easy, or was it people huddling together for strength at the last minute, or you think it's still a little tricky to find because there are still a lot of independent companies out there who you think, well, hang on, shouldn't these guys all be put together? So where do you think we are?
We're in the early days of a big wave of consolidation.
Yeah.
Big, big, big wave. Um, there was a health tech bubble in 2020 to 2021. A lot of companies got funding. It's really easy to raise money as a health tech, digital health company. And we're seeing a big wave of consolidation. I mean, there's like a deal a week announced.
Right.
And I know of ones that have been done and not yet announced that are fairly large. And so I think there's a big wave. I think there's too many companies that got started back in the day.
So let's talk the other flip side of that. I just mentioned, okay, so Marta finally got out. Hinge got out. Hinge was, pretty profitable by the time it got to the IPO. A lot of those companies in 2020 were not. And Marta not yet profitable, but seems to be heading in that direction. What does your or the new H1's sort of trajectory look like in terms of revenue, profitability? What's your intention for the company?
We're running a profitable business from here on out. Like in this year, we're adjusted EBITDA positive. Next year will be positive. We're going to be running a profitable business from here on out. The question that I think about more so though is like, are there companies that help fulfill our mission quicker? Which I think Ribbon and Veda like right down the strike zone, perfect for that. And then if so, how do we bring them together and get everyone excited about it? Founders, employees, their investor base, our employees, and make it worthwhile for everybody. And if we can do that, we will continue doing acquisitions and we'll do as many as we can that fit that thesis. Um, that's what I think about it.
Excellent. All right. Last question. Just give me this sort of quick knuckles for the companies. You're in a bunch of different countries. Where for your clients, you mentioned. I think you mentioned you have data on everywhere other than Russia and Iran or whatever it was. Tell me where the business is in terms of, and then give me a flavor of where the people are. Your people.
Our people are based in the US, England, and India predominantly. So we have offices in
Yeah.
those countries. Um, on the revenue side, about half of life sciences revenue is ex-US.
Okay.
And so now that we also have the health plan side of the business, about 30-ish% of our revenue is ex-US. And so we have users in almost 100 countries, really all over the world using our information to find the right doctor. And so that makes us have teams all over the world supporting them. So we have people that speak Korean, Mandarin, Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish, all over the world supporting the users that use our products.
And how many people total on the company?
About 350.
350. And is that going to go down after the acquisitions as people filter away? Are you going to be growing? What's your sense about how many people it takes to run the company? And I guess the other question is, you showed me a little bit of AI built into there. Does some of the AI that we're seeing start to replace some of the tasks that require to be done in terms of building the data, or
I
not
think
so
the
much?
AI, it makes it quicker. I don't think it replaces the folks that we have on staff. It could like make an engineer 2x productive. So it might change if we're hiring another engineer, but you're not getting rid of the engineers. So it's to guide the AI machine to do a lot of the work. Um, in terms of scale, we're going to hire people needed to continue to scale the business, support our customers. We like work backwards. We don't work, it's not like bottoms up from employee headcount. It's more of like, how many customers are we going to support this year? How many more do we expect to support? How are our customers going to grow? What's needed to support them? And then those questions lead to all the hiring assumptions.
Right. And then, of course, I have to ask the last question. Now you're EBITDA positive. You raised a ton of money. You're doing acquisitions. What about your next step? Do you have visions of an IPO in the future?
There's some founders I talk to or early CEOs who are like, I want to go public. I don't really care. What I care about is like, are we doing meaningful work? Are we achieving a mission? Are we able to do it ourselves standalone? Do we need, or if not, why? Do we need to be part of a larger platform? If yes, do we have the capital to continue to support it? Is that capital available privately or publicly? Let's go answer that. And then are we giving liquidity for the value that's been created over time? And if you answer those questions, I don't really care the way we do it. It could be public, private, whichever way makes more sense.
All right. That's actually a great philosophy because, I mean, I've definitely spoken to a lot of people over the years who said, yes, this company is on the IPO track and one or two of those are the ones that went out in the 2020s, and I'm still looking at, it
That's
hasn't been as much fun as it might be. On the other hand, you do have a couple of people who gave you a ton of money who at some point want some of that money back. So, it's a delicate pattern being the CEO of a venture-backed startup, as I'm sure you know at every board meeting.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I've been speaking with Ariel Katz. He's the CEO of H1. Just made a couple of great acquisitions in Ribbon and Veda. Ariel, thanks for your time.
Thank you. It was great.